Good morning, fifth graders. It's Miss Mink this morning with coffee first. I was just gonna say it's a Monday morning, but it's Tuesday, so we're already almost to Wednesday. Lucky you. Hope you had a lovely weekend and extra couple days off. We're gonna take a look at fractions, adding fractions with unlike denominators today. So we're just putting all these pieces together that you guys have learned or reviewed over the last couple weeks to today. So, whenever we add fractions with unlike denominators, we always need to figure out first, find a common denominator. Okay. So, in order to find a common denominator, we have two things that we can do. We can either look at both of our denominators and look at the lower one and be like, is there anything I can multiply by the smaller number in order to get the larger number? And so you need to think about your multiplication facts. And in this case, we can multiply something by 6 in order to get 12. So I know 6 times 1 is 6, 6 times 2 is 12. So I can multiply by 2. So multiply my denominator by 2 and my numerator by 2. Okay? And then we're able to get 5, and 1 times 2 is 2. 6 times 2 is 12, plus 3 and 2 twelfths. You don't need to multiply this fraction by anything since you already have a denominator of 12, okay? If you weren't able to figure it out that way, what you could do is also find the least common denominator like we did last week. So we're listing both of our denominators, which were 6 and 12, okay? And I can skip count by each of these numbers in order to find a common number that they both have that's the same. So I'm going to start with my big one and go 12, 24, 36. Okay, just out a couple numbers. And then we're going to do the same thing with the 6. We're going to skip count. Oh, my words are not working this morning. So I'm going to go 6 plus another 6 is 12. Oh, and right away I have a match. So that is how we know that 12 is our least common denominator. 2 groups of 6 gives me 12, just like how I multiplied my numerator and my denominator by 2. Okay? We want to avoid multiplying the opposite denominator as much as possible unless there is no other common way to find one. So, for example, I just wouldn't want to go 6 times 12 and then 12 times 6 because that's going to make my denominator, my fractions, really large. You can do that, but then you have to simplify it down. Okay, so now we're going to continue by adding our whole numbers. So I have 5 plus 3 gives me 8. Okay, and then 2 twelfths plus another 2 twelfths gives me 4 twelfths. So remember, we don't want to add our denominators because that's our total equal parts. That's telling us what fraction we actually have. We only want to add our numerators. So now I have 8 and 4 twelfths. But we always want to check to see if we can simplify our answer, okay? So to do that, we need to divide by the same number into both our numerator and our denominator. And since 2 and 4 are both even numbers, you can always start with 2. You can always find a greater factor that can be divided into both of them. But just to make it simple, I can divide by 2. And I now get 8 and 2, 6. But once again, I notice that 2 and 6 are both even numbers, so I can divide by 2 again. Okay. And so now when I divide this, I'm going to erase this for us. I'm going to put my whole number again. So I have 8 because we want to keep that the same. And I have 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. And 6 divided by 2 gives me 3. Okay. So when I'm left with a 1 on the top or a number that can't be divided into both the numerator and the denominator, that means that you are done simplifying. Okay. Remember that if you end up with an improper fraction today as part of your answer, so for example, I'm going to just move over here. let's say I'm left with 3 5/3. Okay. Remember that you cannot leave a fraction as a improper fraction. You need to change it to a mixed number. So I'm going to keep my 3 the same, and now I'm going to take my 5 and divide it by 3. So 5 divided by 3. 3 goes into 5 one time. 1 times 3 is 3. That's what I subtract, and I'm left with 2. 2 becomes my numerator, and 3 becomes my denominator. Okay? So 5/3 is the same as 1 2/3. And so I'm going to add my 1 2/3 to my 3 that I already have. And 3 plus 1 gives me 4, and then 2/3. Okay, so if you have, this is not part of this problem, but if you have an answer that comes out to this 5 5/3 or an improper fraction, that's when you need to know that I need to change that improper fraction to a mixed number and add it to the whole number. All right, I hope you guys have a fabulous day and get outside, enjoy the fresh air. Deuces.